Hi everyone, this is Safwan Isruna from IELTS Writing Prep. It's a great honor to be doing this lesson with Michael Chambers. Um, Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick look at the question. I'm going to analyze it and talk a little bit about how we could plan for a question like this. Okay, so let's take a look at the question itself. In most countries, prison is the most common solution for the problem of crime. However, a more effective solution is to provide people with better education so that they do not become criminals. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay, so first of all, we have the most common solution for the problem is prison, and this is basically this is given as a fact here, okay? And I think everyone who reads this question, will agree that this is the most common solution. So we're not really being asked to agree or disagree with this point here, but we are asked if we agree that the second sentence is, if we agree with the second premise or not. So we have here, however, a more effective solution is to provide people with better education so that they do not become criminals. Now, I underlined more effective because what candidates usually do is they usually take a look at one of the two. And because we have the phrase more effective, okay, it means that we are comparing it to prison. So we're comparing a better education to the solution, which is to put criminals in prison. Okay, so because we have the phrase more, means we're going to have to take a look at both of these solutions in order to have fully covered the task. Okay, now there is something else that I find a little bit tricky about this question, and I assume that the majority, if not nearly all, the candidates or the attempts towards answering this question will be wrong, because it says, however, a more effective solution is to provide people with a better education so that they do not become criminals. Now, so that they do not become criminals. So here we're not talking about just preventing crime, we're talking about, preventing them from becoming criminals to start with. Okay, so that's the tricky bit. I'm going to take a look at some of your writing and I'm going to give you some feedback. I'm 100% sure that most of you are not going to tie better education to preventing people from committing crime to start with. Okay, it is quite a tricky question. I think they got this in China maybe it was a month ago or so. I'm not 100% sure about the date. Okay, when dealing with a question like this, we could take so many different positions. I've written some of them here. I'm sure you could, I'm sure there are so many different positions you could take. First, prisons are more effective than better education. Okay. Um, Focusing on better education is more effective than prisons, which is basically the opposite. Position 3. Both have their pros, however, the benefits of prisons are more significant. Both have their pros, however, the benefits of better education, are more significant. We could also state that they are both equal in how effective they are. That's a possibility. We could say both have their cons, however, prisons are, the negatives of prisons are fewer. Um, and we could do the same for education. Okay, so as you see, we do have lots of different positions that we could take. So, how do you know which is the best position for you to take? Now, the advice I would give is to first brainstorm all your ideas. Write down as many ideas as you can think of, and after you've finished, if you have more ideas for education being positive, being more a better solution, then go for that. If you have more ideas for prison being a better solution, go for that. But what I would definitely suggest is choose a position that's, well, the position that's the easiest for you to explain, develop, and clarify with examples. Because what I see is most of the candidates go into the exam and they just start to answer the question without planning, so they have no focus. And midway, they find out that they don't have any ideas to support their position. And it's too late, really, for them to change their mind and to change their answer. So let's move on to the brainstorming itself. Okay, so what we could do is we could list the pros of prisons, cons of prisons, pros of better education, cons of better education. And once we have that list there, we know, how many ideas we have. So we can choose a position that we have good ideas for. Okay. I personally always advise that candidates go for the easiest position. Okay. Now, the easiest position is usually to totally go one side, so you could totally agree or totally disagree. And this seems like a really easy approach. The reasons why I always recommend that candidates take the easiest approach is that sometimes when a candidate makes mistakes within grammar or within lexical resource or with cohesive divisors or something like that, it really does make it difficult for us to understand the position when we're reading the essay. Okay, when you have a simple idea, even if you have an odd grammatical mistake here or there, or an odd lexical mistake here or there, it doesn't really affect the meaning, and you can still follow the ideas. So this seems like a very, very simple approach. Thesis, in the introduction, basically we're gonna rephrase the background statements, and we're gonna give our thesis statement. So here, better education is more effective than prisons. Body paragraph number 1, we could talk about the negatives of prisons. Body paragraph number 2, we could talk about the positives of better education. And in the conclusion, we could rephrase the thesis statement and give a summary of the main points. Okay. Of course, we could do exactly the same for the opposite, which is prisons are more effective than better education. Okay. So this is a very simple approach that is really difficult to mess up. It's very easy to follow. Now, if you're one of those aiming for a band 8 or a band 9, this is what I suggest. Okay. Some examiners and ex-examiners, they even go to the extent that saying, if you want a 7 and you want to fulfill the requirements of the task, you need to address the background statement. Okay. But most examiners seem to be of the opinion that this is a requirement of a band 8 and a band 9, and this is what I believe myself. Okay, so we have the thesis statement, which is a rephrase of the background statement, and then our opinion, the thesis. Body paragraph number 1, we will talk about how prisons are more popular. And this is the background statement. This is the fact. So in order to get that band 8 or band 9, you need to write about the background statement, and you need to support it and to develop it. So getting a band 8 and a band 9 is about going the extra mile, doing more than what the question asks you to do. Okay, so basically what you would be doing is you'll be writing about how prisons are more popular, and you will be supporting that. Okay, so why is that statement true? That's what you're going to do. You're going to write about that statement and why that statement is true. I would give 2 supporting ideas, okay, per body paragraph. Now, this is not an approach for everyone. I do not recommend that candidates that are really struggling for a band 7 take, because the more you have to write, the more grammatical mistakes, the more lexical mistakes, the more repetition, and possibly the more mistakes with reference links. So, this is an approach for really those advanced candidates. Okay, so this approach isn't for everyone. And then with the body paragraphs, you would continue as usual, and the conclusion being the same. Okay, the mistakes that I expect candidates to talk about prisons and better education in general and not tie them back to how effective they are in combating crime. Okay, number 2, talking about how better education might prevent crime, and not how better education will stop people from becoming criminals in the first place, because that's what it says in the question. And then we have talking about prisons and not better education. So just covering one side and not covering the other side. Okay, it was a pleasure to be invited, and if anyone wants to follow Michael Chambers, he has his Facebook page, IELTS Writing Tips. And if anyone wants to follow me, Safwan Israela, you can follow me on IELTS Writing Prep. And hopefully I'm going to give some feedback for the 4 or 5 essays that have already been written on the WhatsApp application. Thanks for watching, guys. It was an honor to be on this lesson. Bye.